G'day everybody, how are you going today? It is so good to see you. I do hope you are super well. Today I've got some pretty amazing news. Literally 24 hours after releasing my video about what could the Z500 camera potentially be. How could Nikon make it the best camera in the market? And it was by way of using the sensor that we find in this camera right here, which is currently filming me. As we can see, because I have the phone app running, there's the phone app, and the phone app gives you a full broadcast of what you're up to. You can completely control it. We're going to talk about this. I've already started to make videos about it, but this breaking news is just so amazing and so exciting and so coincidental that I should make a video just 24 hours before I talk about this. And we're going to get into it because for the people that aren't across this news, it is going to blow your mind. It's blown my mind. But anyway, there's the app, there's the camera. It's running, it's live, it's happening. Now, of course, this camera here, this is the Komodo X. This is the newest version of this camera, which comes in RF and Z mount and has some astonishing features to it. But there is the original, the OG Komodo, which was also a global sensor. And from what I've read, the sensor in this camera and the original Komodo is the same sensor, but the newer version, the one here, is just ever so slightly tweaked, as we often see with sensors. It's sort of the same base, but they just do some minor things. Now, there was one fundamental thing that I didn't talk about in my previous video, was the fact that the Komodo, not the Komodo X, sensor existed, and that camera was $5,000 US. So already $2,000 cheaper than this camera at $6,999. The major difference between these sensors when it comes to a Z500 replacement, they both have the same 20 megapixels. The X, it runs at 80 frames per second at 20 megapixels, 6K, and the OG, the original, runs at 40 frames per second. And that is one of the single biggest differences between the X and the non-X. There are a few others, the type of batteries that they use, the card media that they use, access to the cloud, and the original sensor is 16 stops of dynamic range, and this one is 16 and a half stops of dynamic range. None of these things change what I want to talk about today, which is this. In my previous video, that is literally just a day old, and I suggested that perhaps with economies of scale and tweaking of the hardware to make it more relative to the stills needs that you would find in a Z500 versus the video needs, because to the best of my research, this camera can run at 80 frames per second at that 6K 19.9 megapixels for as long as your card will last. Cards up to 4 terabytes will go for something like an hour. And this sensor, the Komodo X sensor, is capable of shooting at 6K or 19.9 megapixels in global, so no rolling shutter, and it is 16-bit, which is trillions and trillions of colors. And for birding, we kind of don't need all of that capability. We simply don't. So you could conceivably pare down the sensor. And this is what I was discussing in my video and also in the comments of that video. And lo and behold, literally 24 hours, the announcement comes from Red that they have dropped the price of the original Komodo to $2,999 US. This is absolutely blowing my mind because I speculated a version of this sensor might become cheap enough that it would be able to fit this use case. And here we are, a day later, and this sensor, which might absolutely be able to fit the Z500 use case, is suddenly less than half the price than the sensor in this camera, and there's not that many differences between them. And let's be very clear, yes, 40 frames per second is not 80 frames per second. But, for example, we could go from 16-bit to 14-bit, and that changes your data pipeline significantly. And by changing it from 16-bit to 14-bit, what would that give us in frame rates? It would certainly give us more. Would it give us 80? Might it even give us 120? I don't know. I am not a sensor engineer, and nor am I a programmer writing the compression algorithms and how they work. As of today, the physical sensor that is in the Komodo, it is a global sensor, a 16-bit sensor, 20 megapixel, 19.9 megapixel sensor that runs at 40 frames per second sustained, because it's for video. It will do it for minutes, if not for hours. This is bananas. Imagine if you say, you know what, I just need a burst of 5,000 frames. Just 5,000. Then they would be able to tweak the sensor. I just want to do it in 14-bit. They'd be able to tweak that sensor. And basically, you have the Z500 sensor now on sale in a camera for $2,999. That suddenly brings it extraordinarily close to what the D500 was selling for on launch almost 10 years ago. And if we take inflation into account, and maybe $2,000 today, almost 10 years later, is worth $2,599 or $2,699. Suddenly, $2,699 and $2,999 don't look very different at all. I can't believe that Red has done this. I can't believe that Nikon has access to this technology. It exists. It's here now. They have the body. Is it a Z6 III body? Is it a Z8 body? It's astonishing to me. This video is about how this impacts Nikon and how this impacts access to this sensor. And what will we be able to do with this sensor? And what price points are we going to see for something like a Z500? If it ever comes. Again, I'm speculating. Yes, Nikon own this tech. Yes, they've just dropped the price of it significantly, and that's amazing. There still might not be a big enough market for a Z500. I don't know. But they certainly have the tech for it, and it would blow the industry away, even if they came in at $2,999, which is what the cost of this camera is. The Komodo global sensor. 40 frames per second, 16-bit, 16 stops of dynamic range, sustained. I just had to share this because I think it's amazing that my speculation has just, well, from my perspective, it's come true. And of course, there might be some YouTubers out there that would say, oh, yes, Nikon and Red, they were listening to me and now they've responded to what I said. No, they haven't. This has obviously been in the works for a very long time. They may not have been listening to me, but we may well have the same sorts of ideas. So that's nice. It's nice that we've got the same sorts of ideas. Regardless of which way we cut this, whether it's for Red or whether we're cutting it for Nikon, this is great news that this high level of technology is becoming so accessible. And whether we see it in more Red cameras or whether we see it in more Nikon cameras, it just says the future is so bright. And to reiterate for those who don't know what's going on in the cinema space, there is simply no camera anywhere near this at this price, which is global. There's nothing close. There are some cameras that are close price-wise, but again, none of them are global. They just simply do not have these specifications. And then, of course, when it comes to stills, nobody has an APS-C global sensor in stills. And the nearest competitor is the A9 III, which is 24 megapixels instead of roughly 20 megapixels. But that camera is $5,999. It is now $3,000 more expensive. Both of these cameras are global. And a lot of people that want global, they don't get global because they want 120 frames per second. They get global because they want the advantages of no rolling shutter or what they might be able to do with a flash. I'm one of those people. I don't need 120 frames per second in stills, but I am interested in driving my car and things not bending as they do with rolling shutter. And this sensor is here, accessible for anybody who wants to get into this mount. And now Nikon have access to it and we can see where the price is sitting. This to me is so exciting, and I cannot wait to see what the future holds. And ultimately, to summarize this, $2,999 for a sensor like this, a global sensor that is now accessible at this sort of price point and would be able to go into perhaps some sort of Z500 or who knows what else, and it's global and it's 3,000 USD. I can't wait to see what the future holds. From my perspective, Nikon are not cruising when it comes to Nikon Red. Nikon have just put their foot even harder on the accelerator. All right, everybody, look, that's it for this video. I think it's so exciting. I just wanted to share that with you. I would love to know your thoughts and speculations in the comments below. It has been so good to see you. If this is your first time here, I would love to see you again. So please do subscribe, please share, and please like. All right, I'm excited. Bye for now.